Hi, good afternoon. Happy lunchtime. Great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to be 25 minutes here. This lunchtime, as we chat about a brand new resource, Train One-to-One. And I've got Lanx, I've got Dana with me. And right from the start, I want to say it's rolling along the bottom there. If you've got any questions, stick them in the comments. We'll have a little bit of time later when we'll deal with them. But Lanx, why don't you firstly? I'm gonna head off. I'm gonna come back and deal with those questions later. Why don't you help us understand a little bit firstly what Train One-to-One is?
Thanks, Reedy. Train One-to-One, you saw it on the smart little video. It was good, wasn't it? Look, Train One-to-One, it's a concept and it's a resource. We've been saying pray, play, say for as long as Christians in Sport has existed. But we can't play. We've not been able to play for months now, some of us. So we've changed that, and we pray, stay, say. And so here's the concept of Train One-to-One. We're going to stay in our mates' lives and our sports friends' lives because the minimum we can do across the UK, the minimum everywhere, is to train one-to-one with someone else. So there's the concept. And the resource is just really simple. We want to put resources into people's hands that says, have an intentional conversation about Jesus by asking your friends 3 questions. It's that simple. Train One-to-One. Dano, why have we decided to do this now? Why Train One-to-One?
Well, you captured it brilliantly there. The lockdown triggered pray, stay, say. The first lockdown, as it were. The second round of lockdowns triggered, come on, sharing the gospel is always hard. It's easy to avoid it when you can pray, play, say. It's going to be easier to avoid it than ever if we're not playing. So that's what happened, Lanx, wasn't it? We put our heads together and said, what should we do here? Well, let's do Train One-to-One. Now, so my answer is evangelism, the most wonderful thing in the world you can do to tell somebody the good news about Jesus Christ. All of hell is against evangelism, And we are, the attempt is to terrify us out of doing it. That's how we're doing it. Let's cut against that terror. Let's do it. It's the best thing we could ever do.
It's good. Why do you think it's so hard? I mean, you've alluded to it, haven't you? All hell is against us doing evangelism. But why do you think we find it so hard just to speak of Jesus, the hope that we have in him?
Well, I honestly think if there's if you had 3 things to say about this and you'd said that's 100%, I would say 80 to 90% of them is that first point I've made. If it's true, and it is true that there really is a God in the universe, it's not a game, it's not my idea, it's true. If it's true, and he did come into the world to die on a cross, perfect human being dies on cross because he's God, beats death, and pays our penalty at that cross that we deserve. If he has an opponent, an enemy, all of hell, that enemy, is against that because you're telling people the very truths of life. So look, let me say that plus one. So that's the big issue. But here's the second thing. Why is it so hard? Because we are tempted to think we're being really odd when we talk about Jesus Christ. But the truth is, and I'll throw this back to you, when you run in a running club, when you football in a football club like me, you're just one of the people in the club, and it's not odd. You think it's really odd and you're terrified about it, but it's not. And no one else thinks it's odd. That's what does my head in about this. We think it's odd and nobody else does. And somehow we still think it's odd. They don't. You're just Lanx when you're at the club. and you're a Christian. And we see that in Becky's interview. She's Becky. She's a Christian. She's not odd. So why on earth do we think it's odd? And yet hell wants us to think it's odd. That's
good. It's good. And a couple more reasons, I think, for me as well. Do you know, I just like comfort. Yeah, listen, this is me exposed. I like a comfortable life. And so if I think that I'm going to upset the apple cart, if I'm going to be a hassle to someone by speaking of my faith or asking them what they think about my faith and faith, I don't really want that. So I quite like a comfortable life. And then the second thing is, isn't this true for us all, that we all like to be liked? So we want to be accepted. We just want to fit in. And we just think that when we're going to speak of Jesus or people know that we're a Christian, I think it terrifies us to think that we'll be the odd one out. We'll be ostracized. We'll be kept at arm's length. And therefore, I'm more concerned about what people think about me. I'm more concerned. An idol for me is being accepted within my sports club than it is honoring the King of Kings. And that's ludicrous as that sounds.
No, I'm with you, right? I'm the same as you. But come on, let's press on this until you stop it then, right? Okay, let's really dig in on this now for the sake of ourselves first, Langs, you and me, alone anyone else. When was the last time when it ever happened to you when you said something about being a Christian at your running club or at your football club? How many times in your life have you been ostracized, marginalized, pushed away? He's a numpty. Go on.
I mean, never at that level. Never.
But stop. Never. I know there's more. But I want everyone to hear this because it's the same with me. I think, if I invite somebody now to the quiz, or if I, 58, I've been in football all my life. No one's ever gone to me, Avanti, mate. Get out of here. You're a loser. Why do we think this? Why do we think this? It's a probe, Blanket. It's a probe. Why do we think? What are we going to do about this? We need to get this out of the way.
And so even if those idols are true, isn't it? Well, it's a state of the heart, isn't it? It must be, because my idol is comfort, or my idol is in the two examples that I've given you. My idol is acceptance, and if I've just got an inkling that I might be pushed to arm's length, then I'm chasing after those idols. This is it, rather than following and worshipping the God who's loved me. And I think that's the tension point all the time. That I'll come in with either an excuse not to speak of Jesus, and those two things for me, I think, are big players in the fact that I find it hard. So
now then, right, we called it the pain line, didn't we?
Yeah.
Right. So I want people to hear loud and clear now in our conversation, because this is spontaneous. I'm no better than you. I'm no better than anyone. I have all those panics. I have all those thoughts that you describe. So we're at the pain line, right, Langs? The three questions. What do you make of Jesus is question one. To say to somebody, Johnny, my teammate Johnny, what do you make of Jesus, Johnny? Can I ask you, what do you make of Jesus? At that very second, I'm about to open my mouth and let those out. I'm right at the pain line, right? I'm right on the pain line, right there. At that moment, I'm saying, I've got to say to myself, do you really think Johnny's going to blank you because you asked that question? Do you really think if you played with him, trained with him, hung out with him, been in the car with him, he's going to think you've turned all of a sudden into some stupid Burke? Do you really think that? And then you can cross the pain line easier.
And so for you, the pain line for you, Dano, is it that moment that you go, right, I've just got to do it. I've just got to ask him what he makes of Jesus. I've just got to get the word Jesus out. Is that the pain line for you?
That's the pain line. And the lie to dispel, like you won't play well today, like sports psychology, you're not going to play well today. No, he's a good right back. The pain line is, right, I'm going to cross it. And by the way, I can do this. And he's not going to reject me when I do it. He might reject my ideas. He might, we'll talk about it later. We might have to find different ways to go in the conversation because you don't want to talk, no problem. But the actual thing that you, Ian Lancaster, say something and ask a question like that, and the guy says to you, nah, Lancs, no interest to me whatsoever. Do you think if you handle the next step of that right, fair enough. How far should we run? If you handle that right, do you really think, Graham Daniels, you're going to be ostracized by that guy and he won't look at you tomorrow when you see him? I've got to get rid of that lie. That's how I cross the pain line. Get rid of that lie. Get rid of it. It's a lie. It's a lie.
Yeah.
It's a lie.
And I think, look, Johnny's just come in before he chat. I think here's the irony. We call it the pain line, but actually it's not that painful because, well, it is to begin with. But then when we look back, we go, I just asked someone about Jesus, or I just gave testimony of faith, and that's it. And the conversation's carried on as normal, or I've not been pushed aside at all. So there's the wonder of it, isn't it? The pain line, which is a good name for it, but it's not that painful actually. When we
could call it the lying line. We could call it the lying line instead, I reckon.
Oh, Johnny. Hi, Johnny.
Good. No, really interesting to listen to. Hopefully interesting if you're listening at home. And do, as he said, do stick some comments in if you've got any questions, any comments, anything you want to push around. But we're going to hear now from Becky. Lanx caught up with her earlier today. And she's done Train 1-to-1. She's crossed that pain line. So let's have a listen to Becky.
I'm joined by Becky Dawson from Exeter University. You're involved in a touch rugby team. Becky, Train 1-to-1. Give us the context in which you've done it.
I've done it in the context of Movember. Me and my teammates decided to do a ridiculously difficult fitness challenge where we're running 60k a week. So we're basically running lots, and you have to run one other person outside your household. So I've got running partners galore at the moment.
Sounds great. Listen, good for you. And when we talk about Train 1-to-1, we're talking about right now, what does it look like to ask our friends something of what they make of Jesus? Tell us about those conversations. How has a conversation gone as you've tried to train 1-to-1 with someone?
Yeah, so went on a run, get a pace that we can chat at, which is really nice. Often I'll just ask them about how they found lockdown, how they're finding the restrictions, not being able to play sport. I think lots of people are struggling with their sense of identity, with not being able to train and do everything that they normally do. And so off the back of that, normally they can chat about something which is a bit deeper and more personal. And like all British people, they ask you, have you found it? What your experience has been? And that kind of gives me a platform to talk about the gospel, talk about how actually like it is scary and it is difficult, but I have a certainty, I can trust in a sovereign God. And from that kind of, facilitates discussion about Jesus.
And tell me when you get to that question, because the first question of Train 1-to-1 that we're setting up is, what do you make of Jesus? When you've asked that question, what sort of response have you got from that question?
A big mix. I think at this point they'll know I'm a Christian, so I'll get a bit of banter or a bit of laughter or whatever. I think some people will like try and kind of move it on. They'll be like, "Oh, that's great for you," the classic. That's really fab that you have that. But for me, like Jesus is just a good teacher or whatever. But I think you want to get the conversation onto Jesus. That's kind of the main point. And I think often I'll mention Jesus and then they'll be like, oh, but what about suffering? Or what about this issue or this issue? And actually you want to be like, no, but who do you make of Jesus? Maneuvering that is, tricky.
Really good. Well, it is, isn't it? And we talk about a pain line, that actually mentioning the name Jesus or moving the conversation onto Jesus, there's always a pain line we've got to cross. How do you deal with that pain line, whatever that pain line looks like for you in that moment?
I try and ask, I try and get Jesus into the conversation. That's kind of my aim, somehow. On a run, I'm like, oh, they're stuck with me for however long the run is. Let's try. It's difficult. I know that they're gonna probably think I'm like silly or whatever. But I think once you've crossed it, once you've got it out there, people are actually a lot more open to talking about it and interested than I think beforehand. And even if they're not, and even if they just want to change the topic, you very easily can. And allow that to happen, allow the conversation just to move on, like talking about like a television show or like whatever, and just be natural about it. Don't try and then like move the conversation back to it. Just let it move on, which I think they can appreciate, because if they close doors, then I'm like, cool, that's fine. And just pray that, like, yeah, God will be at work in their hearts.
Dano, Becky was spot on. Go on, pick anything up from Becky's interview there that you think is striking for us to cotton onto.
Well, I've never met Becky, so the first thing that she does is reinforce the conversation we were in before we heard her, right? Which is, you can tell she's super normal. You can tell she's a good girl, top girl, fit in with anyone, fit in with any club, be great in a club. And then she just says it, doesn't she? You think about crossing the pain line, what will they say, what will they do? And then you cross it, and you know what? It's nowhere near as bad as you first thought it was. And that's why she keeps doing it. So that's what caught my attention. She knows it's all right, and just do it.
Right.
So many other things, but she was very good there.
Yeah, wasn't she? Let's talk a little bit about those 3 questions that we're posing as part of this resource. There they are. What do you make of Jesus? What do you think of Jesus' claims? What difference would it make to you if Jesus' claims were true? Help us understand why these questions, why the order of these questions, why these questions are going to help us.
Yeah, good. I think the first thing you want to say about it is that they're there. Let me take them all together first, Lanx, and let's leave them up for a minute, and then perhaps we'll take them down for a second. Let's deal with the general first before the specific, okay? In a general sense, those 3 questions are there because they're the easiest way to summarize that it's not our business to decide for somebody else. That's what Becky did. She's not deciding for her friends. Did you hear her say, I'll ask the question, and if they don't want to talk anymore and they want to move along, don't go back. Don't be a pest. Move along. Don't decide for somebody else. Those are questions that give people the option to decide for themselves. They can say no after the first question. What do you make of Jesus? Nothing. I'm not interested in Jesus, actually. Or they can answer it. I will come back to that. But don't decide for them. That's the point of giving you 3 questions to ask somebody. And secondly, if somebody wants to stop after the first or the second question, or gets to the third and still says that's enough for me, by their body language and words, move along. Just move along. That's what keeps you normal. So that's my first thing, Lance, before we get in any details in the questions. What do you make of that flow? That's why they're there.
Yeah, I like that. It enables what you've described there. It just enables a normal conversation, or me being normal, whilst I'm still crossing that pain line and giving people easy options to get out of the conversation whenever they want, because it's just a conversation. It's not that I'm kind of teeing up in a 6 months work to this point. It's just a normal, natural conversation. So that's what I like about it.
Excellent. And I know we're not looking at each one in detail. We will in a moment. But I think this general thing with those on the screens now shouts out that thing that you just said, and we heard in Becky. All your life, you have conversations with people, all your life, and you ask a question, you give people a chance to answer a question. You don't tell them, look, it doesn't say, I think Jesus is. Do you agree? It says, what do you make of Jesus? It's completely open-ended. You're respecting another person. Your body language needs to respect another person, and you let them decide for themselves. And you follow the flow of the conversation. If it carries on, carry on talking and asking questions. If it stops, stop.
And that's the point, isn't it, of a conversation? So it's not that we're setting these up to go, here's 3 linear questions, go 1, 2, 3, finish in 4 minutes. We're saying, number 1, you might end up 12, 15 minutes as they throw the question back on you. Well, all right, what exactly do you make of him? And then off you go. And you're into a general conversation about Jesus rather than go, I need to fire in these 3 questions in the next 4 minutes. And I think that's what we want to set up as well, isn't it?
Yeah, you summarize that much better than me. It's just a normal behavior by asking one of those questions. And that's bang on. It's just normal. It's not deciding for somebody else. It's respecting their decision when they do decide. So if they carry on, you carry on. If they don't, you don't either. You move along with the flow. Exactly right. Now, I think with the actual questions, Langs, perhaps we ought to have a look at the actual, before we get to the questions from people asking us things. What we've tried to do here, Rico Tice, who's a brilliant explainer of the Christian message, calls these 3 questions, he'd call them identity, mission, and call. And it's almost a summary in 3 questions of what the New Testament Gospels are doing. They're asking us 3 questions, and really in this order. What do you make of Jesus? Who do you think he is, you might say? Lots of ways of saying it, but what do you make of him? What's his identity? Question 2, what do you think he came for? You see, that's what's behind the question. What do you think of Jesus' claims? So fine, who is he? What do you think he was doing? What was his mission? And finally, what's his call to us? What difference would it make to you if Jesus' claims are true? What does he want? What is he asking? What is he telling us we should do? So there's 3 ways of saying, who is he? Why did he come? What response does he want? So get those 3 in your head on Train 1-to-1, and you'll have the 3 best questions ever for the rest of your life. Find your own way to ask those questions. Don't necessarily follow our words, but leave them open-ended. Ask the questions and follow the flow. That's what's behind them. Ask questions, follow the flow, leave when they leave. Who is he? Why did he come? What does he require from us? Or what response does he want, you might say? Really.
Great. Thanks. So as we said, we thought it'd be great to answer a couple of your questions. I had a few sent in on social media, a few in the comments as well. This one's great to start with. For you two, I know both of you have done Train 1-to-1. You've done it in the last few weeks. How have your friends answered that first question? Let's go Lanks first. How have your friends answered that question?
My most recent friend, just the other week, as we just did this, we were trying to pilot this. It's simple, as we said, because it's just conceptual rather than just using the resource. But my friend, look, he knows I'm a Christian, so we've had quite a few conversations before, but I was able just to throw the Christmas angle. We're in the run-up to Christmas. So I asked him, what are you going to make of Jesus this Christmas? Or what do you make of him? Where do you put him this Christmas? And I think that it flows nicely into the season, of course. And the simple answer was, he'll be there, because it's a story that's quite attractive around the whole Christmas feel. So there's no doubt he talks about it within his family. He's there, but it means nothing. He's got no overriding thrust of the celebration around Christmas. So that was the simple answer of his. We got onto some more good conversation off the back of that. But that was quite a good segue into asking a question in the season. Really what I found. It wasn't my idea, it was just someone that I picked up.
Dana, what about you? How have you had your friends answering this question?
Yeah, interesting, really, isn't it? I think Lanks and I have discussed this previously before our conversation now. I'm more prone. I think it's just styles, isn't it? That's why we love the 3 broad questions. My style, so my last one on this was because we'd said, come on, let's try and encourage Christians and sport people around the country and around the world to have a go at who he is, why did he come, and what's he saying to us now. And so I said to a pal, hey, you know I'm a Christian, so I'm going to ask, I've got 3 questions. Could you give me a few minutes? Because I'm too old to run, so I'll go for a walk. Well, I'm too unfit to run. And so I said, I've got these 3 questions, and we're going to try and deal with these questions in our Christmas event of Christians in Sport, which is coming up in December. Could I run them past you to see what you'd say? He knows me. He knows I'm a Christian. He's not a Christian. So he said, yeah, no problem. He said, how long will it take? I said, I don't know, 5 minutes, 3 minutes if you don't answer them. Longer if you want to talk longer. I said, so what do you make of Jesus is question 1. And he said, well, look, I think he lived. I think he was real. I think he died. I can't imagine how he was perfect. He must have been a great teacher. But deep down, I wouldn't want to really go further about him, because I lost my gran the other day. It wasn't right. She was too young, not fair. And I'm really close to a conversation about him at the moment. That was it. I said, I respect that. I respect that. Well, should we walk up to Fenditton? Yeah, that'd be good. Let's do it. It'd be good. Half an hour. Yeah, let's do it. That's how it went. So, but it's respect, isn't it, Langs? Really, it's just normal life.
And that balance into the second question we've got there. Sorry, Lanks, we'll come to you on that. Is how do we make it all a little bit less awkward? You've just said there, Dano, about in some ways just being normal, isn't it?
Langs.
Oh, can I come in? Dano's right, isn't he? See the difference of my approach to Dano's not right, not wrong. I did it with another friend, and I think here's how I made it less awkward with another friend. We're simply using Dano's mechanism there that's all in the resource. And it simply said, hey, listen, we're asking these questions of sports people. Would you mind if I just spend some time as we're running together? Can I just ask you your opinion of it? So we just get into a conversation about it because they go, oh, yeah, all right, then we're running along. And that's when you're able to ask those three questions. And I think that's what we've tried to do in terms of setting this up. That not that we want to hide behind any kind of survey, but it might break that awkward barrier if you're coming at it from the first moment and saying, come on, can we have a conversation around these three questions? And I think that helps a lot of the conversations flow. So I really like the way that's happening in Train 1-to-1.
Really, I just think I'll say one more thing on that. My experience has been the opposite of what we came into this conversation with. I have to say, and I really believe this. I feel you get respect from teammates. I feel you get real respect from teammates. Whichever approach or entry to these three broad questions you take, I think you get respect when somebody thinks they care enough, they're interested enough in me to ask me about things that nobody else talks about bigger things in life than just the sports club. And I think you get respect for being respectful, but willing to cross that line with people. I think it's the opposite to what we are trained to fear, which is that we'll be disrespected. I think it's the reverse. And I think you'll find, as a listener to this, that when you start having a go at this, and that's why we see it as a long-term thing. This isn't a 6-week rush. We want to help you to do this for the rest of your life because it changes your life. It gains respect, but more important than that, it gives people a chance to meet somebody who's a Christian, who they like, who they train or play with. And they think, well, if she or he can be like this, and there's no time scale. We're not chasing results. We're chasing relationships for life, and the Lord can do great things with this. So really, I really hope that we can help colleagues and Christians in sport to step into this place and cross that line.
Great. Well, thanks both. I'm sure there's more we could say. We may do this again. But thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for watching. If you're watching later as well, you can see it there, christiansport.org.uk/train1-to-1. Gives you a bit more information about what it is, what we encourage people to do. Lanks, you've got your finger up.
Oh, can I don't want the last word. It's not like me to have the last word, really. But we do want this to flow into something around Christmas as well, don't we? So I just wanted to throw that in. Not that it has to follow on, but there is a big Christmas event that we would love you to say, hey, come along with the questions that we've been asking and you answering. Come along to hear more about what the Christian faith is in the lead up to Christmas. So look out for that as well. I think that's
Friday, 11th of December, 8 o'clock. You'll see all that on our social media in the next few days. Big quiz this Friday. If you're watching this, this is currently the 18th of November. You may be watching this later, but 20th of November, Friday, the big quiz is back as well. And then Christmas, as we said, on the 11th of December will be a great night as well. So thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully see you again soon. Ta-ra.
Thank you.